Starting in our standing posture, feet underneath the hips, hands alongside the hips. Standing tall, reaching through the crown of the head, finding balance between the front and backs of the feet. Breathing here, in and out through the nose if it's comfortable. And then from here, we'll start to rotate the wrists, maybe in and around, big circles with the wrists, and then reverse those circles. And then we'll start to rotate the shoulders up and back, down and forward, and then reverse those circles, rolling forward. And then we'll take a deep breath, reach the arms up towards the sky. Exhale, hands together, sitting back into our chair. Inhale, reach up. Exhale into forward fold. Maybe start with bend in the knees. Inhale, we'll come half high, maybe straighten legs, definitely straighten back. Exhale, folding forward deeply. Inhale, sweep and reach all the way back up to standing. Connect the palms down in front of the chest. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold, sitting back into our chair. Inhale, reaching back up. And then exhale, folding into that forward fold. Inhale, half high. Exhale, folding forward deeply. Inhale, sweep and reach all the way back up. Hands connect back in front of the chest. Inhale, reaching back up towards the sky. Get tall. Exhale, sitting back into that chair. Go ahead and inhale, reach back up. And then exhale, swan dive back into that forward fold. Then we'll inhale half high, and then we'll step the right foot back into our lunge. Inhale, once the legs are placed, knee over the ankle on the left side. We'll inhale, reach the arms up towards the sky, and then maybe on the exhales, sink the hips a little bit deeper, keeping that right knee straight, lifted high, starting to stretch into those hips a little bit more. We'll go ahead and exhale, release the hands back to the mat. Go ahead and step that back to plank and then back to downward facing dog. Taking a moment to breathe there. And then from here, we're going to release to the knees and we're going to take a cat and cow flow for a bit. Easing into the spine and also creating space to breathe a little bit deeper. So inhales, the belly floats down towards the mat, stretching through the chest, pulling the shoulder blades back and down towards the tailbone. And as you exhale, press into your hands, into your knees, either toes or tops of feet, rolling out the spine. Continue to flow here, really stretching out that spine. And again, finding yourself breathing a little bit deeper with each inhale. On the exhales, perhaps pulling the navel in just a little bit more towards the spine. Expelling just a little bit more breath. Really clearing out any stagnant air in the base of the lungs here. Making sure that the back is feeling fantastic here. Maybe just one more flow, really pausing, taking that full amount of breath to flow there. And then we're going to release that back to child's pose, release the hips, extend the arms, tuck toes. We're going to press back to downward facing dog. And then we're going to go ahead and step right foot forward, taking that high lunge now on the right side. When you're ready, inhale, reach the arms up towards the sky, getting tall, and again, easing into those hips. So left knee lifted high, press that left heel back towards the back wall, but then start to release the hips a little bit closer to the floor. We'll release the hands back to the mat, step or walk back up to our forward fold. We're going to come into our chair pose on the inhale, and then exhale, inhale, stand and reach it all the way up. Exhale, hands down alongside the hips. From here, we're going to go ahead and take warrior two on that right side. We're going to step the left foot back down the mat, turn the left toes out to the side, extend arms right out above those legs. Taking a gaze out over those front fingertips. Good. Perhaps easing into those hips a little bit more. Just making sure knee isn't bending past the toes, and with an inhale, we'll reverse that warrior. Right arm up towards the ceiling, left arm down the back of that left leg, or perhaps tucking behind the left hip, catching the inside of that right thigh. And then we're going to bring that into our side angle, releasing right elbow on top of the thigh, left arm up towards the ceiling. Everything in one nice straight line, or if it feels good, perhaps straightening that right arm down towards the mat. Deepening that stretch into the hips once again. Perhaps extending that left arm over the left ear if that feels good. And then we'll release left hand down to the mat. Go ahead and spin up to high lunge on that right side. And then we'll step back to our plank. Exhale down to chaturanga, so hovering above the mat. And then inhale into upward dog, flipping or tucking those toes. And then we'll press back to downward dog on the exhale. From here, we're going to bend in the knees, really press back, deepening into that downward facing dog. And then from here, we'll inhale forward into our plank. Then we're going to exhale, step or walk those feet up to that forward fold. Sitting back into that chair, hands to the chest. Inhale, stretch and reach it all the way back up towards the ceiling. Exhale, hands down alongside the hips. Now turning into our warrior two on the left side. Step right foot back, open those right toes out to the side. Extend the arms out over the legs. Gaze over those front fingertips. Inhale, reach left arm up towards the sky. Right arm again down the back of the right leg, or perhaps wrapping behind the low back, catching the inside of that left thigh, binding that. Gaze up if it feels good. And then we'll unwind that twist, release that left arm down, either elbow on top of the thigh or perhaps to the floor. Deepening into the hips a little bit, right arm up towards the sky. Maybe extend that right arm above the right ear for a moment, and then we'll go ahead and release, right hand back down to the floor. We're going to go ahead and step back to that plank once again. Back to downward facing dog. And then inhale, coming forward to our plank. Exhale down to that chaturanga. Inhaling into upward dog, or maybe down to cobra with hips to the mat. Tucking or flipping the toes back to downward facing dog. And then we're going to release to the knees, releasing back into child's pose. And then we'll tuck the toes. We're going to go ahead and lift up to our plank and then turn that into side plank on the right side. So left arm extending up towards the ceiling. Perhaps if it feels good, you can also lift the left leg, extending it up towards the ceiling or the sky as well. Into our starfish pose. Deep breath in here. And then with an exhale, slowly release that back forward to plank. And then we're going to flip to the other side. Right arm up towards the ceiling, rolling to that left side, left hand. And then if it feels good, also reach that right leg up towards the sky. Starfish that pose. Deep breath, and with an exhale, go ahead and roll that back forward into plank. And then we're going to release the knees, release all the way down to the belly. Release the arms back alongside the hips. We'll prepare ourselves for low cobra next. We'll go ahead and tuck the hands underneath the shoulders. Bring the big toes in to touch, pressing through the tops of the feet. We'll gently lift up just the chest, pulling the elbows in towards the ribs. Pausing there, and if it feels good with the back, slowly press into those hands to lift up from the forearms, lifting the chest, the ribs, the abdomen up. Just pelvis, hands, and tops of feet pressing into the mat. Deep breaths here, and then as you exhale, slowly lower and release opposite cheek to the mat. Hands back alongside the hips. Relaxing and breathing here for a few moments. And then we'll slowly start to bend at the knees, reach the hands back, catching the outer edge of the feet. And then we're gently going to pull those feet in either towards the glutes, into the glutes, or towards the outside edge of the glutes, stretching through the fronts of the thighs into those quadriceps. And then we'll slowly start to turn this into bow by pressing the tops of the feet into the hands, engage the muscles of the legs, and that's going to lift, again, the chest, the rib cage, maybe the top portion of the belly up from the mat. Deep breaths, maybe rocking a little bit with our breath here. As you exhale, slowly release cheek to the mat, release those tops of hands and feet back to the mat. Turn the big toes into touch and let the heels drop open wide, pausing to rest and breathe here for a few moments. And then we'll slowly tuck the hands underneath the shoulders, rolling ourselves back to a child's pose, either with arms extended forward or releasing tops of hands back alongside the feet. From here, we're going to move into dolphin. So we're going to line the elbows right underneath the shoulders, interlace the fingers, press the edge of the forearms and the edge of the palms into the mat. Send the hips back just like downward dog, and then you can stay here or tiptoe those feet in to prepare yourself and lift up into your supported headstand. Maybe tucking knees towards the chest, maybe bringing knees towards the sky with feet behind the glutes, and then maybe extending feet up towards the sky. Deep breaths here, and then option to turn our legs into an eagle pose, wrapping right knee around the left, wrapping that right foot up and around that left ankle. Here, maybe bringing the knees a little bit lower, really engaging the abdomen, and then we'll slowly unwind those legs and then reverse. Left leg wrapping around the right, maybe foot behind the ankle. And then we'll slowly start to unwind that and see if we can slowly lower those feet back down with control, and then immediately coming to rest in our child's pose. Again, with either arms extending forward or back alongside those feet. Pausing to rest and breathe here. And then we're going to take a modified thread the needle pose. We're going to extend the left arm forward and reach the right arm underneath the chest in front of those knees, lowering the chest down towards that right arm. Feeling that stretch through the right shoulder, upper back, a few deep breaths here. And then reversing, reach right arm forward, left arm underneath the chest, in front of those knees, just across the body. Deep breaths into that left shoulder, left upper side of the back. And then we're going to slowly come back out, extend both arms forward into that child's pose. And then we're going to tuck the toes and make our way up into downward facing dog. From here, we're going to take a moment to rock up high onto the tips of the toes, stretching through the feet, especially those arches of the feet for a moment. And then we're going to press left heel firmly into the floor, right leg lifting high up and back. And then we're going to pull the knee into the chest, step that up into our high lunge on that right side. And then from here, we're going to tuck the right arm underneath that right thigh, pressing in that palm. See if we can float the right foot up, maybe even straighten that leg. Then release that foot down, unwrap that arm, and then lower that left knee down to the mat. From here, maybe lowering down into lizard pose, bending at the elbows or releasing forearms all the way down to the floor. Deep breaths into those hips. And then we'll start to lift the torso back up. Place the hands. We're going to press the hips back over that right leg, extending through that right hamstring, breathing deep there. Modified split there. And then we'll go ahead and shift weight back forward over the right knee. We're going to take a deep bend in the left, and then we're going to flex the right foot, lean towards that left arm, and press the inside of the right hand into the inside of that right leg. Glute and hip stretch on that right side. Maybe twisting slightly to the right, gaze back over the right shoulder, and then we'll slowly unwind, tuck the left toes, press back to downward facing dog. And then we'll inhale, left leg up and back towards the ceiling, deep breath. And then as you exhale, pull that knee into the chest, stepping that up into that high lunge. And then from here, we'll bend a little bit through those elbows, maybe tuck the back of the left arm underneath that left leg. And then see if we can press into the hands to maybe float the left foot up from the mat, or maybe even start to straighten through that left leg. We'll release that foot, untuck that arm underneath the leg, release that right knee to the floor, and then deep into our lizard pose. From here, I apologize. You might want to pause the video. I forgot to do our hamstring stretch on this left side. So feel free to pause the video and find that stretch. And then we're going to turn into that hip stretch, that glute stretch. So flexing the left foot, pressing the hand to the inside of that left knee, and then maybe twisting slightly to the left, gaze back over that left shoulder. As you exhale, unwind, lift that knee back up, place the hands back to the floor, and then we're going to press up and back to our downward facing dog. And then from here, we're going to slowly step, walk, or hop our feet out wide into a deep squat, releasing those hips all the way down behind the heels, hands pressing into the chest, outside edges of the arms into the inside of the knees. You can use the strength of the arms to press those knees apart if that feels good. Deep breaths here. And then from here, we'll prepare for our crow pose. So we'll release the hands down, keep chin lifted, and slowly float those feet up from the mat, touching the big toes, finding that strength in the arms, even weight distributed for the wrists. And then we'll slowly release those toes back down to the mat, place the hands, and then we'll straighten the legs into our forward fold. Once we're in our forward fold, we can rock the hips side to side, maybe shift the weight forward and back a few times. Maybe we want to sway the torso around. Maybe rock up onto the toes, bending the knees slightly. And then we're going to place the hands firmly back down to the mat. We're going to step or hop the feet back to our plank. And then eventually back into downward facing dog. From there, we're going to release down to our child's pose. Taking your time, this is our last downward dog. Pressing that back into that child's pose. And then we're going to take our time and slowly roll ourselves up to seated, and then eventually up to kneeling. We can keep toes untucked, press to the tops of the feet, interlace the fingers, and reach those arms straight back and down. Opening up through the chest, maybe the chin lifts towards the ceiling, and then reverse the grip. Whichever thumb was on top, place the other thumb on top now, opening up that chest, and then we'll slowly release. Come down to seated, and then bring the legs forward, coming all the way down to seated. And then from here, we'll prepare for our bridge pose. We'll place the hands down, fingers in line with the toes, and then lift those hips as high as they'll go. Deep breaths here. You can stay where you're at, or if you would like, float the right leg, the right foot right up towards the ceiling. Deep breath, slowly release that foot down, and then maybe lift the left foot up towards the ceiling. Deep breath, lots of strength and power. And then as you exhale, release that down. Take a moment again to just press those hips high towards the ceiling, and then exhale to release those down. Take a moment to stretch the wrists, maybe press the tops of the hands into the mat, maybe roll those hands around a few times. Then we'll prepare for bridge pose. Always starting with a straight long spine. So keep your chest lifted, hands behind the backs of the thighs. And then we never want to collapse and round that back. That's our kind of lazy boat pose. So from here, keep that chest lifted high, and then we'll float the feet up. Maybe take the hands away, and maybe straighten those legs out. Maybe extend those arms. Deep breaths there, and then slowly reverse to come back down. And then we're going to take a moment to just hug those knees to the chest, coming all the way down onto our back. Maybe we want to rock those hips side to side a few times. And maybe really tuck those knees into the chest, maybe rock those around a few times. And then we're going to release the feet hip distance apart to the mat, place the hands down alongside the hips, lifting the hips high now into our bridge pose. Deep breaths here, and then maybe start to bring the hands underneath the back, interlacing those fingertips, pressing outer edges of the arms into the mat. You can stay here, or if you would like to come into your supported shoulder stand, then we'll bend at the elbows, tuck the backs of the hands or fists into the low back. Maybe come up onto the toes and see if you can flip maybe one leg at a time, bringing knees down alongside the ears. Keeping gaze always to the ceiling here. We don't want to turn and look at the video. We want to keep gaze up, not putting pressure on that cervical spine on the sides. Maybe start to straighten the legs up towards the ceiling. Now hands pressing into the low back, bringing elbows as close together behind the back as possible. Deep breaths here. And then slowly bend the knees back towards the ears. Bring those interlaced hands back down to the mat and see if you can flip one foot at a time back down. And then slowly lower that spine all the way down. And then from here, definitely hug those knees into the chest. Maybe even lift the chin towards the knees. Releasing that back down. From here, we're going to move into fish pose. We're going to tuck backs of hands under the glutes. Tuck the elbows in. Lift the torso. Lift the head. Gently start to arch the back, bringing top of head gently to the floor, breathing deep here. Reversing that rounding of the back. And then very slowly we'll float the head back up. And then we're going to slowly relax the arms, bring the torso all the way back down. And then again, we're going to hug those knees into the chest, rock that side to side a little bit. And then we're going to rock the knees over to the right, opening into a spinal twist. Maybe arms open out into a T, or maybe we bend at the elbows into our cactus arms. If it feels good, chin rolls towards that left shoulder. Deep breaths here, letting gravity do the work. So let the legs, the arms get heavy. Make any adjustments that make this feel the best. And then we'll slowly start to unwind that spinal twist. Make any movements you need to before you reverse, eventually rocking knees to the left, all the way down, and then maybe chin towards that right shoulder. Feel free to close the eyes here. Deep breaths here. Again, let gravity do the work. Let the arms, the legs get heavy. And then we'll slowly start to unwind our twists. We're going to move into just a brief butterfly pose. So any movements, adjustments, hugging of the knees you need to do. And then eventually we'll release feet to the mat. Open the knees wide, bring soles of feet into touch, and then hands and arms wherever they feel best. Maybe that's alongside the torso, maybe on the hips or abdomen, or maybe out above your head. Deep breaths here, and again, let gravity do the work. We're not squeezing and engaging the muscles of the inner thighs here. We're just letting the legs get heavy. And then we'll slowly start to bring those knees back up towards each other, moving into our final relaxation. So if you have an eye pillow you'd like to place over your eyes, or if the room is cool, maybe place a blanket over your legs, but we'll straighten the heels out to the corners of the mat. Hands down alongside the hips, rolling the palms towards the ceiling. And then we'll just make our way through our body, asking each and every part to fully relax and let go. I relax my feet and ankles. I relax my shins, calves, and knees. I relax my thighs and hamstrings. I relax my hips and pelvis. I relax my hands and wrists. I relax my forearms, elbows, and upper arms. I relax my back, abdomen, and ribs. I relax my chest and shoulders. I relax my neck, face, and jaw. Breathing here as long as you'd like, and just eventually making your way out. Thank you so much for joining me today.